year is 1890. At this time, Julia Tuttle is making preparations to move to Miami. She meets the man named James Ingram, who works for a transportation builder named Henry Plant. Before moving to Miami, Julia Tuttle already had in her mind that she wanted to make Miami the place to be. And she wanted to find ways for people around the world to get down here. So her meeting with James Ingram, again, who worked for Henry Plant, was to arrange an expedition to survey the area of Miami, of the 640 acres or more or less that Julia Tuttle had, to see if a transportation system would be possible. So railroad tycoons, Henry Flagler and Henry Plant, funded the expedition, okay? They funded the expedition for James Ingram and his party to come down to this area, to South Florida, to survey it, to see if the conditions are favorable for a railway system. Getting around at that particular time would have required one to be able to maneuver through really raw conditions. So that expedition that was arranged was the result of Julia Tuttle writing to various businessmen, as the such I mentioned before, including Rockefeller and more. Her letters were written to convince the parties that I mentioned before, such as Henry Flagler, Henry Plant, and Rockefeller, and more, to convince them to get their railroads down to Miami. Now, you might be asking, what was she going to give in return? Her offer was portions of her land. So keep in mind, this is the initial phase. She had just gotten to Miami, okay? And she wrote these letters. Not everyone said yes to partaking in the expedition, and no one said yes to a railroad yet. Okay, so we have a before and after here. This picture below was taken around the 1890s, of course, and we have the Brickell home seen at the corner of the island, all right? And across from there, of course, not exactly across, but across from there is Fort Dallas, where Julia Tuttle, of course, resided. Now, above, I'm showing you the corner, I believe, where the Brickell home was. I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, that's okay if you correct me, but I believe that's where that particular house that we see on the bottom was. Now, that photo of the Brickell home in the Miami River was taken from the Royal Palm Hotel. Someone took it from the vantage point of the Royal Palm Hotel. Now, the Royal Palm Hotel was one of the first hotels in Miami. In fact, probably the first grand hotel in Miami, and it was built by Henry Flagler. However, we'll discuss more about that later. So the purpose of this video was to give sort of a framework of the how. We know the why Julia Tuttle wanted to come down here. We know the when she came down here. We know the where she moved. We know where her neighbors were, okay? And this video is somewhat of the murky middle. It tells us kind of how she got the conversation going about getting a railroad down here. There are a few things that we should know, okay? I don't want to give the perception that she was like the only person here and the total founder of Miami. And, you know, her block was the only block. No. The Bahamians, right, of Coconut Grove were already here. They had an established community, all right? And her father actually had property down here in the area not too far, right? And was already neighbors with the Brickells. So it's not like she was like the total founder. And as a matter of fact, she was not the only one who offered land, okay, to get railroad companies down here. And she wasn't the only one who campaigned. The Brickells did as well, But for the purposes of this video, my goal was just more or less to focus more on Julia Tuttle to keep it focused. Another thing that we should know, Miami was not incorporated yet when she came, right? So you have to ask yourself, this woman who couldn't vote, right, wants to start a city. Very revolutionary, very revolutionary. But stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching. Thanks for letting me share.